You gotta love a good Malicious Compliance episode. My name is Vince, and the host of today's show is going to be Andy. I'll be with you on Friday, as I'm usually with you on Fridays. So, this is going to be fun. r/Malicious Compliance, like I said, user Joe Mondo, Deathbed Malicious Compliance. Give it all to her. Okay.
My grandmother was an immigrant who had to leave school at about the age of 12 after her own mother died. As the eldest daughter, it was her responsibility to take care of her younger siblings. Consequently, she never learnt more than basic reading and math, and although she married and had kids of her own, she worked outside the home to add to the household income, often doing cleaning and other low-wage work. Of her own children, most were reasonable people, but her youngest daughter was a complete parasite. She had no problem taking whatever she could get from her mother, my grandmother even having her mother co-sign on debt and then leaving her to pay it off. Despite not having much education, my grandmother was a wise person in her own way, but not when it came to her own kids, and especially not her mooch daughter. She just could not stop letting her daughter misuse her. She ultimately became ill with cancer. Her kids took care of her, except for, you guessed it, the youngest parasite daughter. On her deathbed, she told her oldest daughter she was worried about the mooch and related where she kept all her money. It wasn't much, maybe $700 or so. And then she told her oldest daughter that when she died, to give it all to the mooch. After my grandmother died, oldest daughter had to stomach giving her own mother's last dollars to a miserable vampire of a sister. But to make it more tolerable, she decided to do it by sending it in installments of $10 a month. So that's what she did. For years, just $10 a month, every month. Not enough to splurge on anything, not enough to even make a difference in her life, almost as if it were nothing. I always admired my older aunt. She knew how to hold a grudge. You know what, I'd be absolutely fucking stoked if someone started sending me $10 a month, but then again, I'm pretty easy to please. Our next story is from Ultra Superman 1001. Stop resetting my password! I'm in a senior role at a service desk, and like everywhere else, if we see a ticket come up that has already been done or is a duplicate request, we just cancel the tickets and move on with our day. Well, we have this one user who is a vice president, and they are the type of person who thinks the world revolves around them. So they would be the person to send in a ticket, then 5 minutes later send another ticket, and so on until there is like a dozen tickets in the system. Well, a few weeks ago we introduced a new password policy, 18 characters, etc., etc. with an additional policy that makes you change your password after a reset, and you can't use a password you've used before. And this was a big change considering our previous policy was no requirements. Most users figured it out pretty good, and even the VP. Now, this is where the malicious compliance comes in. With that new password policy, it was also introduced that all tickets must be actioned before resolving them. And you can guess who brought in that change. So the VP went on vacation for a bit, then came back and forgot their password. And like normal, they would send in a dozen or more tickets. Now in the first 5 minutes or so between their tickets, we would get another 1 to 5 tickets come in, and it takes about 10 minutes to go through those. So my team and I went through every ticket like we were told to do, and we were counting the number of times we reset the VP's password, because we knew this was going to come back on us. So lo and behold, in the span of about an hour, we reset their password about 11 times. This is when our manager comes in and says, I just got an email from the VP and they say you keep resetting their password. The manager is a good guy, and I remind him of the new ticket policy. He chuckles and heads back to his office, and he forwards us an email with the subject, Stop resetting my password! In the email, it says they had to change their password 12 times and they're running out of passwords they can think of and to stop resetting their password. I reply all to the email and say, due to a new policy of tickets where we have to action each one before resolving it, we had to reset your password a number of times. No less than an hour later, our department gets an email from the president that says, we have reviewed one of your new ticket policies and believe this is not to be the best use of your time, so we're going to ask you to recant this policy. Needless to say, we stopped the policy because it was dumb from the start, and surprisingly, the VP actually started sending fewer and fewer tickets. I just love a story with a happy ending. Our next one is from KCX. You want me to search for non-existent products? Alright, got it. 3 years ago, I was working in a popular local cafe in the middle of a big city. Obviously, there were a lot of customers during rush hour, and of course, the usual Karens. At the time of this story, I was just finishing my training to be fully hired. The manager, Steve, was an utterly obnoxious person who was overall very disturbing. He'd tell us to do something, then change his mind while we were halfway through it. Anyways, he wasn't exactly competent, but we were low on staff and the owner desperately needed a manager. So this one day I'm just clocking in and I see my first clients are a bunch of kids and their Karen of a mum. Yeah, she even had the haircut. The following conversation ensued. What are your muffin flavours? We have all of these muffin flavours. No, I'll just take one of those special edition muffins. Points to the back of the kitchen like she's expecting me to make them for her. Oh, sorry, those are limited edition muffins. We don't do them anymore. Rolling her eyes. Oh, yeah, I know. Just give me like 5 of them. Me, a bit louder, thinking she didn't hear me. We don't have those anymore, ma'am. I'm sorry. Oh, just give me them. What's wrong with you? Get me your manager. Now at this point, I'm pretty pissed because this woman is screaming at me at the top of her lungs and gathering all the attention towards her. So I do as she asked and get her the manager. Steve looks mad as soon as I disturb him. He goes to see the Karen and comes back to me. Just give her the muffins, now. We don't have any of those muffins left. I already explained that to her. There are some left, just find them. Where are they? I'm pretty positive we don't have any left. I don't care about your opinion, just find them already. Ask others to help. You find them if you're that dumb. And don't go back to that lady or any other client until you find those muffins. Me, thinking about what he just said. Okay, sir, I'll give her the muffins. That's better. So I go and try and find them everywhere in the store. Of course, there is none left as the muffins are seasonal items, and since none arrived in stock, there is no special edition muffins left. Cue the malicious compliance. So since Steve told me to not go back to that lady or any other client until I found the muffins, I do exactly that. Since he also told me to ask others for help, I make sure to let every employee know my desperate need for help in finding the muffins. In the end, no one liked Steve anyways, we all went searching for the muffins. For several hours, clients kept pouring in until one of them dared to ask what we were all doing running around. I calmly explained that our manager sent us searching for something and we couldn't work until we found it. I insisted that our hands were tied and we couldn't serve them until our manager said so. Every single client went banging on Steve's door demanding to talk to him. As soon as he opened the door, everyone started yelling at him to let the employee serve them. Visibly confused by so many people in the cafe and in front of him, he shouted my name. Now I wasn't allowed to stop searching, so I replied by yelling back too. He eventually came in front of me and asked me what the fuck was going on. The following conversation was priceless. Oh, I was just searching for the muffins. What? Why? Well, you asked me to find them and to get help if needed. You insisted I shouldn't go serve anyone until I find them. Since we never found them, we never got to work again. Steve, realizing he just lost hours of profit. Seriously? Go back to work, now! Me with a smug grin on my face. "But we didn't find the muffins yet, sir. Would you like to search with us?" Steve went ballistic on me and saying that this was insubordination, that I had the IQ of a slug, etc, etc. Meanwhile, the Karen sent multiple complaints to the owner about the manager. At the end of the day, the owner came personally to announce that Steve was fired and replaced by one of my co-workers. We never had any other seasonal muffins after that.
Well, she's married to the Muffin Man.
The Muffin Man?
The Muffin Man!
Our next story is from Anubis3210. My boss said, "Sue me," so I did. I was 19 when this happened. I'm a plus-sized girl who's confident in my body. I've been working at the same big chain restaurant since I was 15 years old. It was my first job. It's what one would call higher-end fast food. When I went to college, I transferred stores and began working at the same place in another city. Everything was going great for about a year, until we got a new boss. Immediately, he singled me out and told me I needed to stop dressing the way I do because it was going to lead to men harassing me. He would say this daily to me and also told me graphic stories of sexual assault he had witnessed at our workplace because of leggings. One day, I stood up to him and told him it's not appropriate that he says this stuff, especially given all the people under the age of 18 we worked with. Later into his first week, he yelled at me for something minor and told me I should just quit because he's gonna find a way to get rid of me. So I did. He was transferred to another store, and I came back under a new boss who was amazing and understood what the previous boss had done was wrong. I worked without incident for a month, and then my original terrible boss came back. Again, he singled me out and tried to make me uncomfortable by telling me I was going to get harassed. This time, I fought back. I told him straight up if he continued I would sue him and the company for doing nothing after I reported it. He laughed at me and said go ahead, and that I would never get a dime from the company. Cue malicious compliance. I quit on the spot that day and contacted a lawyer who advised me to file a complaint against the company with the EEOC for sexual harassment and retaliation. After a long year of waiting, the company agreed to a mediation by an outside neutral party. I negotiated and was awarded $15,000 in damages. I'm not sure what happened to him, but the company must be pissed. He messed with the wrong pre-law student. Our next story is from Ancient Educator 76. Just sign this document, it will dock you 11.5 hours. I'm a middle school teacher who speaks fluent Spanish, thanks to growing up in the West Valley. Go Suns! The fact that I'm bilingual has given me many opportunities, including one where a teacher in charge of an English language learner, ELL, important acronym for later, program, gave me the opportunity to tutor students twice weekly, plus an additional 15 minutes per every hour worked as prep time. Okay, cool, so Mondays and Fridays I punch in 15 minutes before 2:20 during my 7th hour prep, then punch out at 3:30 when the kids left. No problem, right? Wrong. At the end of the year, I get an email saying I'm being docked 11.5 hours that were punched in before the end of the day. I was livid. They claimed I'm getting double paid. But I looked through everything I signed off on and didn't remember seeing any restrictions on when I was to punch in for those hours. We met in the office and the district representative had me sign this document, and she showed me the contract I signed. Nowhere did it specify when I was to punch in those hours, and I brought this to both people's attention who were present. But Federal Action Plan, FAP, office lady persisted, just sign it, you can't get double paid. Enter malicious compliance. I signed quickly, this time using my middle name, which happened to be fuck this bullshit. It read, oh fuck this bullshit P. I happen to know the person at district office, Do Saviour, who will be reviewing this paperwork, and know that she'll either ask me what's up or have me re-sign an obvious non-signature. Like clockwork, I get a phone call on my 7th hour prep from Do Saviour. She asked why I signed like this and why I'm being docked. I explained my working with the 2 new students who don't speak any English all year and even teaching them both English all year. I explained no one said anything all year and that I'd have made the adjustment to get paid those hours the entire school year. She says, "Wait a minute, you were on your prep time, right? And you're bilingual. Do you have a cert?" All answers were yes. My next paycheck was $3,500 more than my standard paycheck, coming out of the fat lady's budget for federal action plans. I was very confused at first. It appears that I can punch in during my contract hours if it's on my scheduled prep, and because I have an ELL endorsement, I got this endorsement working with monolingual students in the West Valley, and my direct supervisor on campus doesn't, I get paid as an ELL leader on campus, quite the stipend. So what was supposed to be a $345 deduction in pay for me turned out to be 10 times greater, as a deduction from their department paid directly to me. So, looks like Fap Lady's right. I can't get double paid, but looks like I can get double quintuple paid. Our next story is from Cinnamon Gin. Natural occurring colours. In the early 2000s, I worked at a Canadian casino. The place had so many ridiculous rules, including some very particular rules about makeup. The makeup rules were as follows. 1. No fake eyelashes. 2. No fake fingernails or fingernail extensions. 3. No makeup that is not a natural colour. The natural colour one confused me. What is deemed natural? Who decides what is and isn't natural? I asked my manager for clarification, but she couldn't give me any. Just keep it natural, use naturally occurring colours and you'll be fine. This did not sit well with me. Cue malicious compliance. My aunt has her master's in environmental science. I went to her house one evening and picked her brain about naturally occurring colours. She informed me that scientifically, natural occurring colours are colours that can be found directly in nature. She even showed me a textbook that directly spoke about natural occurring colours. I borrowed the textbook and highlighted the paragraphs that specified this. Keep in mind that this was well before you could just Google something. The only way to back up the claim was to carry that 750-page textbook to work with me. My next shift, I went all out. Green eyeliner, eggplant-coloured eyeshadow, yellow nail polish on one hand and mango-coloured on the other. I hit the floor to work and within the first few minutes I get hauled into my manager's office. "OP, what do you think you're doing? You cannot wear those colours. You know the policy states natural occurring colours only. When it comes to makeup, head to the staff bathroom immediately and remove it." Wordlessly, I headed to the staff bathroom, but instead of taking the makeup off, I went to my locker, grabbed the textbook, and marched back to my manager's office. Excuse me, Mr. Manager, I am wearing natural occurring colours. Here, look at this textbook that specifically states what natural occurring colours are by definition. I watched her face change as she read the book. First, she looked pissed, then worried, and then finally resigned herself to what was happening. "OP, do you really need to be that type of person?" "The type that follows the rules? I thought that's what you wanted me to do." She asked me to head back to the floor. For the remaining time I was employed there, I wore whatever colour makeup I wanted, and so did almost all of my co-workers. They tried coming out with new rules, but could never get the wording right. Fuck stupid rules. Malicious compliance for the win.
So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince. Thank you to my producer, Kevin, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.